Great. Okay, yeah. Now they got the voice from God now that says it's being recorded. I guess they've had some issues, I guess, with people recording without people knowing. So that's good.
Yeah. So Jen, I'm gonna continue to assume that you can hear me.
I'm right here.
Here she comes. Here she comes. She had to go get a pen or two.
Ridiculous. Yes, I got a pen.
Okay.
All right, Ted, go for it.
I'm Ted Lai, and I'm the Vice President of Student Services and Success at Cal Bright College. And so this is a fully online community college that serves students in California who are more towards the later years of so not directly out of high school, like 25 to 39-ish or so, who maybe were forced to get into the workforce, or maybe they didn't have that urge to go to school, but now they need up-leveling. So we're a more agile community college that basically looks at the trends and develops programs quickly to meet those different needs out there. So if there's a need for CRM, for instance, customer relationship management software is really big right now. So we just launched a CRM pilot. So that's currently what we're doing. I've only been here about a month though. So it's not it's definitely not something that I've been here for a while, but my career has built towards this because this role is all about really trying to rethink higher education experiences, how you make things way more competency-based, culturally relevant, et cetera. And for the past 10 years, I worked at Apple. And so I was consulting with schools at that point to really think through how technology can amplify their vision, but more importantly, how a change of pedagogy or a change of mindset really brings that about more than the technology itself. And that's where I met Kevin. I was working with Compton Unified, and he was too as a consultant. And so we connected there and found we had quite a bit in common in terms of really trying to rethink opportunities for students, how we can get them to apply their learning, express their knowledge in a different way. And so, been touching base with Kevin now and then throughout the years to see if there are places that there are intersections of what we're doing that can amplify each other. Sometimes it works out, sometimes not so much, but we continue to build. And now in my new role, there are possibly some ways that we can continue to build. One of the things I've learned about Kevin is he's a great connector. He sees people in their roles and sees how they might connect together. And even if they don't connect right away necessarily and have something to work on, there's always this kind of possibilities are out there. And I'll pause there because that's a long intro.
Great. Wonderful intro.
and Jen, if you have any questions for Ted, ask before you introduce yourself. But I think the intersection of things that I'm going to challenge us to do will allow, I think, you guys to really be able to marry some things that you do outside of your bailiwick, like your jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll point to those things. So yeah, Jen, so jump in.
Sure. So lovely to meet you, Ted. My name is Jen. I'm based in Montreal in Canada. I work for a software company that's originated in the UK, has a presence in the US, and we build software for filmmakers. So anyone who's doing visual effects, animation. It's a little bit of a niche. It's a corner of the market. It's very high touch, high tech. There's schools that are teaching our software, schools that are teaching visual effects, often within a film pipeline, often within a film department. It's a smaller subset of filmmaking. But it's an exciting industry. And I met Kevin through an organization called the Academy Software Foundation. And what the Academy Software Foundation is, it's a group of film studios as well as software providers and technologists. And a lot of the technologies that films are using today and that the software that supports these films are using are open source software. So anyone can participate to these projects. Anyone who's a coder, anyone who wants to be an engineer. There's a whole world of engineering in film that is often neglected or not known. People don't know. It's not all director, camera, action. There's, engineers and R&D behind a lot of this. So Kevin and I met on the diversity committee of the Academy Software Foundation, whose mission it is to bring a more diverse audience to the open source projects that the foundation manages and encourage more people to step up and be part of the community, bring film R&D to engineering colleges and technical colleges to understand that this is a path that they could pursue as a job, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So Kevin and I have been, and then Kevin has an interest in a conference that, is a big one in our space. And he did a project a couple of years ago with a group of film students or group of students who created almost like a reporting structure, and they had a blog and they were doing videos, and it was quite impressive. And the takeaway was, Kevin's takeaway, correct me if I'm wrong, Kevin, was if they don't know about this conference, they'll never know about the opportunities in it. So we've been trying to figure out a way that we could find a project or work together to help a group of students basically skill up, especially in underserved schools and regions where they can be exposed to the industry that I work in. So that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, and that is, again, this is an attempt for us to get one, maybe two things that we can agree on that are really mission critical for not only the educators and the faculty, but for the corporations who want to hunt for talent coming out of these areas, these schools, is to let them know what is I think the opportunity is I'm going to call it what it is, career exploration. I don't think there are a lot of people who really know what they need to know about where these opportunities are and how to get in or how to even prep for them. And so I think the solution is how to create some type of product that matches people up with all the things that people don't know, with all the people that want them to know these things, in a way where it can really scale up or down to where I think people need to experiment on where they could actually create something that is sustainable as an experiential learning program. Because again, the colleges, the universities, the community college universities, they just don't have the faculty and the curriculum that can keep pace with anything that anybody would introduce. So it's almost got to be a transparent overlay to what some of the faculty can support as something that industry people could bring in as a experiential learning module. So speakers are one thing, workshops, field trips, once COVID's over, that's what their model has been, but nothing sticks if the faculty can't support it. And so therefore, I'm looking for something a little bit more robust than just, mixing and matching things that have some interest with the students, because they still don't know the pathway to get all the things they can from the professionals and how to make sure that they're very prescriptive. So that's the problem. I'm looking for people who can help me with a solution that is something that we can expose the coalition of the willing. So anybody have any ideas on how we can get, I do have the ears of some of the people at the leadership level at the community colleges, at the high school levels, and also at the four-year university level. But, I want to create a pilot so we don't try and ask everybody to participate without some type of track to success. So that's kind of where I am right now. So I've got all these people and I just don't know what I can do beyond do something. Any thoughts?
Well, I mean, it's real open-ended. obviously.
Really, I mean, it's,
For my role, it's interesting because for me, I have influence on the courses that we go forward with, but there's an actual vice president who's focused only on instruction, who is going through the instructional design of the courses and such. And then we also have a vice president who really is focused on the workforce development side of things, which informs us on what courses we're going to be pushing forward. And I'm more of let's make sure we're all coordinated. And then how do the academic success counselors, the welcome services, the instructors all align for that, the smooth rollouts and such. All this to say, it's a machine that I'm operating with right now where, I can't flip a switch necessarily, but I would love to see how, especially with the workforce development, we can figure out ways to collaborate and build something off of that.
right.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at Calbright College's curriculum. So
It's meager right now. I mean, Calbright, currently we've only got 4 different programs.
I said focused. I would have used the word focused.
Sorry, it's focused. Right?
I'm in marketing.
We have 10 other programs within the next year that are launching. But at no time will we ever have more than 20 programs.
That's good.
Because we feel that if you're really looking for what the high demand things are, you can't go beyond 20. You're going to be dropping programs and adding something new that's
Right.
gathering more attention.
How long does it take to launch a program?
All told, honestly, it depends on whether we're taking something already existing or not. If it's totally created from scratch, it's 3 to 4 months. If it's something that's already been created and we just need to put in the parts of it that make it competency based and such, and then all the different marketing material around it, then it's a shorter time frame, more like a month and a half to 2 months.
Do you guys have anything on the educational technology, do you think? Do you know in your roadmap, like film editing or design or anything like that?
Yeah, so absolutely. Nothing is on the roadmap specifically for that. The next 5 courses are already specified. After that, we have a few options, but I know that the college is extremely interested in the creative arts because the Arts Media Entertainment Coalition in California is huge. When you look at the creative economy, it's bonkers in California, especially Southern California. And so we know that that's a huge area of need. The thing that we are struggling with and why it's taken us a while to develop any courses in that area is because we're fully online. So we need to consider not just the online portion of the conceptual knowledge, but how do we provide externships or internships or apprenticeships in line with it so that students also get the practical knowledge and can demonstrate some of those transferable skills like emotional intelligence, collaboration, initiative, etc., in a real environment. So that's what we're struggling with at this time.
Well, I have to say the irony of COVID is that we're all in that situation. We're now all online, right? And that's a problem. Like collaboration is a problem. And like collaboration for me now seems to mean 7 hours of Zoom meetings a day. That's what collaboration has morphed into. That's not collaborative. It's just Zoom. The other thing that must be a challenge is also access to technology. Right? You don't know what people have at home unless you guys are using any cloud stuff in the back end. But, for us in creative arts, you need a powerful laptop or computer to be able to use the software to do what you're supposed to be doing. If you guys don't have labs or anything, that can be a challenge in a non-COVID world. Yeah.
And honestly, technology is an issue as well, because we are, our clientele are typically lower socioeconomics, and we're also a free institution that's providing technology. So right now, the technology tools are not like Like for instance, we were considering how we could do coding with Xcode, but we actually don't have MacBooks to
Right.
go ahead and lend out at this time, much to my chagrin, because, you know, as an Apple guy, I'm like, come on, we should get them. And then we should also be doing Final Cut certifications. But yeah, so we also have to think that part through as well. That if we go ahead and bring in stuff with the creative economy, with, let's say, video editing, for instance, then we've also got to think through, if a student doesn't already have the tools, how do we provide it?
Right. Yeah, no, definitely a challenge.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I wanted to offer, I'm working with an organization called the Vermont Slauson Economic Development Corporation, and they're one of the drivers in partnership with Annenberg, USC, to create these teen tech centers that aren't just limited to high school students. They're actually looking for people who are even out of school, to give them access to the technology, to the hardware, to workshops, to workspace, to really be able to get them bootstrapped for apprenticeship.
Well, Kevin, this is sounding interesting. Actually, this is something we might be able to chew on.
Yeah. So there's this is, you know, obviously with COVID, we're not sure when we're going to launch, but this has been almost 2 years in the making, and they've created, out of the Best Buy stores in retail, they've created retail space for these workshops. But the idea is they want to partner with the teen tech centers to create the roadmap for what kinds of certifications, what type of badging, and all the other things that have to be socialized to the people, that they can, you know, again, standardize what can be taught in one center in Crenshaw to the other center in Watts, to the other center in Cleveland, Ohio. So they've got, I think, you know, in the information I sent there, I think I have the information close at hand, but there's, this is a global, it's Canada, Mexico, but I think that there's close to 3,500 Best Buy centers around the country. But I'm focused right now in Southern California, Best Buy teen tech centers, because we have more industry who could provide mentorship and volunteer services to help, you know, guide these programs into some type of meaningful exchange that doesn't just have to be training. Because that's what my problem is. There's a lot of training programs, there's a lot of training efforts, but they never map to somebody's culture. So if you guys are amenable, I don't want to do anything until we have all the players that are willing to create a pilot and say, hey, let's try something. I'd love to bring these people on to discuss a united effort. They have funding, but the most important thing is I just don't think they have the prescriptive things that will help people get a job in creative tech. So, you know, and USC Annenberg, they're from the School of Journalism and Media and Storytelling, but I don't know how many of the students that they're going to recruit are going to be ready for an apprenticeship. That's what my concern is. Because we're talking about South LA, Compton, Inglewood, Watts, Crenshaw. You know, we got to really stand up some type of pilot that says, oh, okay, we can give people some realistic requirements they're going to need beyond just getting exposure.
Yeah,
So,
I know, definitely. I've seen, there was a similar series of places like this on the East Coast that Intel funded. This is going back 10, 15 years. Yeah, and it's one thing to, you know, like, I'm not trying to knock Best Buy's investment. It's a wonderful thing, but it's one thing to launch a thing, cut the ribbon, take the photos, but what happens 2 years later? What happens 3 years later? Like, what's the sustainability of them?
Right. Yeah, the woman at Annenberg is really the driver for the Southern California.
Okay, that's awesome.
Because the problem with the other teen tech centers, they don't have the kind of industry
Right.
that's going to get these people a creative tech apprenticeship. But Annenberg can. They've got the relationships with the mayor's office, with all of the studios. We just don't know how to, I don't think that they know how deep the waters are. And we don't want these people to get too far out there and not have any success at getting them onboarded to some corporation or some program's internship program, let alone an apprenticeship program. So I'm willing to bring on all of my industry professionals. I have, Ted Milner. I think Ted, you remember Ted Milner, right?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. So Ted's willing to do some boot camping and getting people their soft skills and all the other things to redirect them to how to get an interview and how to have their soft skills sharpened up. Then we have some other people who are really concerned about making sure that people are buttoned up. So we can offer up a speaker series. I have all those folks lined up, but I think the Annenberg folks are going to give us space to, test this out so that we're working really closer with industry than we're working in an academic environment. And that's what I think everybody's concerned about is, is there really a there inside of these community colleges and four-year universities? And there's some, and I'm working on some of them, but they're too far and few between. So I want a concentrated effort of people like you guys saying, hey, what can we pilot as something compelling, something with growth? So Jen has, visual effects. And Ted, again, just using a page out of your Apple book, everybody create, everybody code. How much adoption has that really had in the public schools? Aside from your schools in Orange County you use. We still know that that's something that it's a great slogan for people to use, but how many people can really produce a product or story? And what does that really even mean? So that kind of certification thing that we've talked about is really what I'm looking for is, and let's face it, Apple's certification was as strong as anybody's, And do we still have connection to some of the Apple distinguished educators who could help create those certification modules if we paid them? Because that's what I would offer up as some of the funding is to pay some of the Apple distinguished educators. So can you talk a little bit about that, Ted?
Yeah, so there's an entire network of Apple distinguished educators. Apple honors about 100 educators every 2 years for innovation. And this is 100 every 2 years in the US, but then there's more worldwide in Canada, Australia, parts of Asia, EMEA, etc. So they often bring us together as to have that mind share, to really talk through what we're doing and how we're trying to make a difference and be able to build off of each other to do more international projects. When I was chosen as an Apple Distinguished Educator, we're talking this is back in 2003. So that's like 4 generations of technology ago, at least. I'm ancient compared to some of the newbies out there. But yeah, what's fascinating is that they have been kind of this almost startup type mentality of being able to share an idea, iterate it really quickly and try things out and come back. So many of them work at Apple Distinguished Schools, which is another different honor that Apple does, where they look at schools that have one-to-one technologies of iPad or Mac that are doing innovative things with them. So it's not just that they have the stuff, but that they're doing innovative things at them. So some of the Apple Distinguished Educators are at Apple Distinguished Schools. Some aren't. Some are just at any old school and just doing incredible things. So, but in terms of leveraging them, right now I still need to get access back into the network because my access was as an Apple Distinguished Educator, then it was as an Apple employee, and now they have to switch it back. So there's a little process involved. So I need to re-engage that community.
Wow. And again, my ask for you, Ted, is whatever we can do to bring some of the genius of that network and some of the people you introduced me to who were willing to be hired out to teach a course.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what I thought of at the end of the day. What educators are really, again, onboarded for all the latest, technology integration of Apple at least, because most of the schools I work with are Apple schools. But if I just had somebody who was certified to be able to offer that up, that would be a great delivery. Just that. So, and again, Jen, these are the things that I think about that are missing pieces for the community colleges and the California State Universities. And I think at the end of the day, I think Best Buy or Annenberg would love to have access to some of those people who could teach a course or two, especially,
Yeah.
especially.
I
So good.
Well, there's like, it needs, I'm just reading the article. I've been rereading it and just Googling the different organizations. There's an opportunity, like when they talk about film, digital media, audio, music production. I'd love to talk to them a little bit more about who they're working with and what, because again, I think it's easy to get someone to do a workshop, like one workshop, that's fine. But to actually teach a course is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
And there's different, I'm thinking, like, I worked with an organization years ago called the Urban Video Game Academy, where they were based in Georgia. And their goals were to do after-school programs for at-risk youth and teach them video game development, and also understand the business of gaming and bring more diverse creators to the gaming industry. I feel like, especially with young, when I worked at Autodesk, where gaming was a big part of our market, like young kids love video games. They just do. They love playing them. So they want to make them. And there's different, like there's a couple of companies that have quite interesting education. Like I'm thinking of Unity Technologies, for example, which if you guys are familiar, but they basically power the majority of mobile games, and they have quite an in-depth education group there. So I think there's a few software companies, and that's why I like the ASWF, because if we work with that group, it gives us access to a whole bunch of companies. So is Apple part of it? I'm not sure if Apple's part of it. Microsoft's part of it. Disney's part of it. Netflix. Like there's a whole bunch of companies that are part of this organization.
Jen, actually, Apple did join it as a closed source company. They joined it. They joined it.
I couldn't remember if they were on the board. Yeah, so that's right. They're on the board. Yeah, so this one might be something that actually is more tangible that we can get people excited about, especially as reopenings are happening. I'm so curious what hardware Best Buy is giving. I'm assuming it's not Macs, because they don't sell Macs.
No, they do. Best Buy does sell Macs.
Yeah, they've created a store within a store.
Yes,
that must be in America, because it's not here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
they sell Macs. So that's perfect for film, not so perfect for video games. But it would be interesting to understand what they're stacking these rooms with, right? Like these actual hands-on workplaces. That'll help. That'll define a lot of what you can teach based on what hardware is available to the students.
Well, I think it's all up for grabs. Well, at least it is for this organization, Vermont Slauson Economic Development Corporation. They are, politically speaking, they are the biggest partner that deals with workforce development. And Netflix has given them a $10 million grant. This company here, Vermont Slauson Economic Development Corporation. And interestingly enough, they gave them the money, and all of the money went to small, medium-sized businesses who had nothing to do with media. So they are what I would call them. They are the tent pole that would allow a lot of political and economic people to jump into any pilot. So the person on my board sits on the board of Vermont Slauson Economic Development Corporation. So I have a chance to pitch them at their board meeting in July on anything. So I just got to get it tight. And if it's teaching a course or a pilot or something, I need to start cooking it up now and tossing it to her. Her name is Keisha Washington. And I think she's actually the strategic partner for Los Angeles Development Water Power Company. So she is really, again, very interested in something that can be sustainable. Her whole deal is not bringing on a course or a speaker bureau, but what can be scaled? What can we learn on something that, because they've got all the money in the world, but what can we bring that's going to be compelling and give these kids a jump start on something that, you know, everybody can, you know, be proud of, and stand it up as something that can be, you know, scrutinized by all the other people who are going to say, well, hey, well, why wasn't someone consulting me, or how come I didn't get in? So I'm not saying that anything that we're doing is going to be, you know, the only thing, but I think we have a good shot at really convincing these people that we can bring some leadership to anything that they decide they want to do at Annenberg. And it can scale, it can be shared with all the other Best Buy organizations around the country, because that's what they're really interested in. They don't want people in Southern California to not share with people in Cleveland or some of the other ones. So,
Right, but okay, I'm getting micro again rather than macro, although I love macro because it's great to think of the big picture. But what can we achieve with this organization? If this is where you want to put our energy, Kevin, it's up to you.
yeah,
But
this is, I need a plan. I need a proposal / plan on what can we offer them that we can, you know, stand up and say, hey, these are the things we can deliver. So obviously it'd be workshops, but career exploration. I did a career exploration class, but I mean, I want this to be something that means what it says. How do we? I'm sorry, go
I
ahead.
think what we can try and do, based on the companies involved, we might have some, like you have your contacts in the sports management and the sports tech. So what I'm just thinking, if we brought this to, like, if we look at other sponsors, right? So like Foundry could sponsor licenses, no problem. That's an easy win. We can dedicate licenses to the teen centers. We have a nonprofit donation thing we could do. That's easy. I know there's other companies. We could also do the same thing, and also hopefully get access to technology for these, so they don't have to buy them. Well, some of the tech's free, some of it has a cost associated. So within the Academy software, we can potentially ask. I have to ask. I don't know what the process is, but if this is something that ASWF wants to take on and do a couple of, we have all the pre-recorded workshops that we did on a career in software development and a career, like there's different ones we have. But if this was something we could partner with.
That's a great idea. I mean, just take all of the webinars that were free and just curate them in a way so that they could be introduced from an introductory standpoint to students who would say, hey, this is part of my career exploration.
I think what we need to know more about is a little bit more about what are they talking about in terms of focus on film, digital media, etc. What do they need? Do they need experts? Do they need software? Or do they have everything all planned out already? That would be my first question to them.
Okay.
Do you have anyone that we could talk to at Vermont and Slauson?
Yes, I'm going to send the recording to Keisha Washington. She will be the person who can tell us who.
Kevin, don't send her the recording. We're just brainstorming.
Okay, no, well, this is the person that I can do a conference call with so that she can meet you guys, because she's an attorney, but she'll ask all the questions that will allow you guys to say, yeah, I think we can investigate that. I think we can look at, you know, something that, again, is a pilot. And again, if it's just a speaker bureau or a workshop series to start with, and we call it career exploration, we talk about the things that are growth areas or areas where D&I can have an impact. I think that would be what would be the thing that would be that'd be a home run. But do it, again, from our strength of people who really are interested in helping to create, and I hate to use this word pipeline, but who are really interested in a pipeline or a pool of talent.
Well, that's why I'm excited about tapping into the ASWF with Netflix and Disney, because they're making, you know, investments and statements that this is top of mind for them. so there's some big companies in that organization. So tying that together with them, to me, there's some interest there. I mean, it's a bit on the engineering side, less on the fun part of, I say fun in quotes because I'm not an engineer. Maybe that's super fun for the engineers. So who am I to say engineering is not a blast? But it's not the flashy stuff that, like, here I made a movie, or here I made a video game proof of concept. It's a little bit more. So we just have to make sure that it's all about focus, right? Like, is this
Right.
going to be something that the Academy Software Foundation can endorse? There's another organization I work with called Access VFX. And they do all kinds of podcasts and video presentations. It's a global organization. It's not US based, but they do have an LA office, an LA branch. And I don't know who's running it, but I can easily find out. But their goal is to like introduce people to the industry. They're focused on, it started in the UK, so it reads very UK like, but they have, they have a mentor program. They do a whole bunch of job titles. They do exploration. They do all kinds of virtual events, career events, very focused on lower income areas. So not just when they think of diversity, they think of like access to hubs, right? Like, so if I think about the UK, like who's in Northern England that will never make it down to London to study? How can we help the schools that are like, on the outskirts of these metropolitan areas that are in the country that are very far removed, as well as focused on a diverse audience. They're focused on a lot of openness in terms of LGBTQ and everything. I mean, they do a little bit of everything, these guys. So they might be an interesting path as well to connect this project.
Well, I think Keisha, I put her, there's her LinkedIn, just so, if you want to study a little bit about her, but she is my champion along with Ted. And there's a couple other people in my group who will try to cook up some kind of pilot that we can insert into their calendar for launch, and we'll get a shot. We'll get a shot at doing whatever we want to do. But the LA incubator, the Lacey incubator, is what she is funded, what LADWP is funded, and they're in green and clean tech. And that's why when Ted was at Apple, I was trying to make the connection between her and Ted, because Lisa Jackson, I guess, who was running the diversity initiative, Apple was big on green and clean tech. And so these guys at the Lacey Accelerator Incubator have the largest library of software for all of the people who use the Accelerator Incubator to produce prototypes and products. And all of the stuff that they make available for people to produce prototypes who are really trying to get funding, they have another component for anybody who wants to create a prototype can use their software and use their lab, and they don't have to go through a process. So it's one of the things that Keisha wants to make sure that happens for people who are not, let's say, who are not blessed with being able to get through a process and getting an angel investor and all these other things. So it's an exposure to these things that I think she wants to see happen. So people learning software so that they can develop solutions for their communities. So, and Ted's big thing for me is how to create products, how to create stories, how to create content, whatever, that has impact on people's communities.
Yeah, and that's the thing with the Best Buy. Everything I've read so far, it's very open-ended, and I hope that they find direction soon, because it's pretty easy to blow through that amount of money without much direction.
Yeah. Well,
and so in the end,
Especially if
oh no, they're going to blow through it. They're going to blow through it if they don't understand where those deliverables that allow people like you guys to say, hey, that is the end game. That is what it is. It's not just getting them to do something that's, off the shelf. But I stress is that we have a chance, we have a shot to make an argument that says, hey, have you guys thought about this as the new pedagogy, as the new challenge to get people to do something relevant. And relevancy changes every day. So whoever's writing the curriculum or doing whatever they're doing, I mean, are they thinking that way? Are they thinking open source? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So, you know, so that's what I'm thinking is if we have a chance to talk to Keisha, I'd like to have a very short agenda that I can send her and talk about things like, you know, challenge-based learning, open source. These are all terms that I'm not sure that she has ever heard. And as a board member, I think these are things we need to have as things that we can deliver. At least the affinity of these things. So I don't know what else I can do to help you guys help me, but if we want to talk to Keisha as a group, she'll be there.
I'm wondering how, if it's open-ended and there's no real deliverable that's proposed to her. I don't know Keisha well. I mean, we've only met a handful of times or spoken a handful of times, but how will she react if there's no real deliverable that's actually proposed? Will it be a, you know, dream big moment, or will it be a, well, you know, come back to me when you have something that I can actually back?
Right, right. Well, one of the things I think she really liked when I was working with AT&T, she really liked challenge competitions, something that, you know, it would give people an incentive to submit themselves for qualification. So at the end of the day, if it's career exploration, that's nice, but it, you know, it needs to be a challenge that people can, you know, really collaborate and team and you know, go for prizes and try to get recognition.
Well, the reason why I'm excited from like the film space and the film technology space, game technology space, is that because this Best Buy grant is like, this development seems to be focused on film, digital media, et cetera. Because I think my worry about just being too broad, right? Like, we can't just throw open source at this organization. They're going to have no idea what we're talking about. They're going to be like, what is this nonsense? We can use open source with like Blender, you know, from a 3D application. This is a free open source tool that teaches people to use 3D so they can make models, they can make game assets, film assets. There's tons of online learning. It's a free software from the community. Then there's other stuff where we could look into partnerships, but it depends on what they're trying to do. Because my only red flag, and this is not to say because of what I saw years ago, is what is the same as this, but like Intel came in, like you were sort of saying before, Ted, like they'll blow through the money. They gave this organization of community centers, same principle, but it was Northeast, and they gave them like millions of dollars. They were there for 2 years. And again, I'm not knocking Best Buy, but like big ceremonies, big, like we're doing such a good job. And then that was it. They just left the organizations to manage on their own. And they struggled with like proper tutors and proper mentors and who could help the kids and what are we doing after school? Are we just babysitting?
So Jen, I know the guy who really funded that, he was the head of philanthropy for Intel. He's now head of the, his name was Marcelino Ford Levine. They were really big on creating makers labs at one point, but then they got connected with workforce development agencies to try and make sure the technologies and all the stuff that Intel would support would create certifications. Like they did a big lab in North Las Vegas so that students would learn how to use drone technology for the hotel industry. And I don't know what happened to that, but they started to think more about maker to impact, to workforce to impact on getting these people from these low income areas, certified and coached up so that they understood what was the next in the industry that was connected to their geography. And so for Southern California, what can we give these people and again, all the terminology and the technology she won't know. And I'm telling you, there needs to be somebody who can explain to these people how all this stuff can connect. That's really what it is. It's really more of somebody that they trust will tell them that this is where you guys need to be looking at as futurists. These people will not be in workforce in the next 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 to 5 years from now.
So I have one more question, but I do want to say, because I just looked up the Clubhouse network, I was misinformed. Intel continued sponsorship quite a few years. So I do apologize to Intel
Okay.
as an organization for assuming that they dropped interest. But I remember going there and there was just not that like teaching mentor. That was the big hole. They're like, yeah, we got the computers, but what are we supposed to do with them? I think that was their issue.
Yeah.
So I do apologize.
Yeah.
But like, this is my question to you, Kevin, because we've talked about a variety of different ideas in the last month. So is this the one that we want to go for?
This is the one. This is the one. And if I, one bullet, one shot, I would ask Ted in his new position if he could think up the kind of introduction to this new world of learners, of new world of teaching, to connect with these new learners in the ways in which it could make some track that could be measured in a way it's not being measured right now by industry. So industry would have participation in how these people are getting closer to the requirements that they'd like to see these people meet. Because the whole argument of D&I is that they don't want, they can't find anybody because they aren't looking. Well, that may be true, but I want to make sure that anything I do is that they can never make the excuse that we can't find them anymore and they're not coached up to the standards. So if anything, I want you guys to help me make sure that if we, mentor and we coach these people up, they're getting the fresh new curriculum and the fresh new way of learning and producing projects and challenge-based learning. That's what I want to have happen. It's not going to happen in my lifetime with the public schools, the community colleges, and the universities. I've spent 11 years in all of them, and I'm working in them, and the people are just too thick to get it through their head. So I think that this is the chance to use Keisha and her position, her political position, to help this center bring us in. That's it. So next step is I want to get Keisha possibly to tell us what she needs so that she can make sure, not me, but her goes to the board and say, hey, we want these guys to come in and help us understand where the next is.
Before that level, though, I think we need to, I would like personally to know a little bit more about what they're doing.
Okay. So
what are they?
Can you give me any questions that I can send to her and say, hey, my group has an interest in learning more about a match, what we can do to match what you guys are currently doing. So if you can give me some questions, I will get them to her. And not just questions, but assertions, things that you think you guys would like to do, if they're prepared for them. In the vagary of everything that I've heard, I don't know anything. But what would we like to do, and what would we like to have as an outcome of any engagement with these young people working in these teen tech centers?
So I'll just jump in for me. I would love to sponsor these programs with software and a commitment to do X, Y, X amount of workshops. Maybe it's 3. That's something that I can handle, that I think I could do. And I think if we are able to pull in another organization like Access VFX or even ASWF, it'll just broaden that scope. So, but before I just walk around and say like, hey, I can give you free software, I need to know what they need, because free software is worth nothing if you can't teach it and you can't run it and you can't install it. It means 0 to people. If there's not the interest, like we have, there's that gentleman I told you about whose school teaches sneaker design. He's like the preeminent.
So I put that,
amazing.
I would love to meet. I've researched that, so I definitely want to make sure. I want to make an overture to them if there's any workshop or anything they can do to give students a chance to participate or submit.
For sure, but stepping back, like if this is, we're going to work with the Best Buy org, and that's our efforts. What do they want to teach? They might have agreements in place. They might already have free software. I have no idea. They might be partnering with Adobe. Who knows? And the more we know what they're doing, the more we can say, hey, we think new technology, you should be learning this. This is really interesting for anyone who wants to design sneakers. This is really interesting for anyone who wants to make video games. this is really interesting for anyone who wants to make movies.
Okay, and so here's what I'm going to ask of you, Jen. Can you give me an example of what visual effects could do as an extension to traditional filmmaking storytelling? What visual effects could be for people who are just getting into it? So that
I can, but I need to know if they're doing, are they doing filmmaking? Like, that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah,
Like, what
well,
are they doing?
I would say that I would promote storytelling, film, some kind of film challenge would be one of the things I would offer. Knowing those people that are connected to this thing, some kind of film challenge or storytelling challenge that has impact. Because what I liked what Apple was doing is they had their racial social justice program that challenged students on filmmaking, storytelling, and sharing things that were relevant to those communities. And so I know Keisha would love that. And I think that that would give the students the opportunity to express themselves using the tool.
Absolutely, but
But I
you know,
would
going
propose
back-
I would propose this to Keisha myself as what I'd like to do. So having said that, what overlay can visual effects do to help these people make a more authentic story for themselves? If they knew how to use it, if they even knew what it was. Because none of the film students I'm working with right now at Cal State University know what visual effects really mean to them. I'm working with MFAs, and no, none of the people in any of the competitions that they just don't know how to use it. How do you take the bridge to create something that will allow them to use these emerging technologies in ways, how do you put in their tool belt? Because they're not getting support in their classes. How are they ever going to do anything? They're not being encouraged to use them. So one of the things I do have, if we did do a workshop, I have 2 university students who are MFAs who are willing to volunteer to teach a course on the things that they've been taught and the film projects they're pitching. And I'm going to say that I have 2 people who can offer up their peer-to-peer understanding of how to use the tools and as an extension. But in Ted's case, these students that I'm working at the 4-year level, they don't know how to code. I don't know if they even know how to code anymore. Ted, do the people need to know how to code anymore? Because most of the software or an AI doesn't need, coding anymore.
I think that coding will actually still increasingly be an important thing to learn, just because you need to understand that type of logical sequencing to be able to work with several different programs out there, but also to possibly, create things that meet your needs to a deeper level. Because out of the box things, out of the box solutions don't always do it. So you've got to figure out how to kind of work around that.
Reverse engineer or whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I need to get going soon because I have a 4 o'clock that I'm leading. But one thing that I would say is in my current role, I'm not seeing my place in this right now, just because I'm not directly influencing the courses yet. But one thing that I would say or kind of move you toward is that idea of dreaming through what's the wrapper, whether that's, trying to improve community through storytelling. And then the visual effects is something that really amplifies that. Or, the courses that the people, that what they're teaching, how does that really clarify the story? Because I think when you're doing that, it produces some deliverables that you can actually then measure the results. So that would be what my one thing that I would try to add before I go.
Okay. Well, that makes sense to me. I don't know if I've ever needed to impart that into anybody, but I think so with this group. If there's a need for it, I think that we got to make sure that that's part of the throughput for.
Yeah, I don't think you ever need that necessarily, but I think that places like Best Buy, I mean,
And all these different organizations,
they'll
yeah.
like they put money into a community, but there's no real container, there's no real package, there's no real vision in
A wrapper. Okay, I got it.
kind of what, you know, so great, you've got access, now what kind of thing. And I think that that's at the heart of why a lot of one-to-one programs in schools fail, because there's no real vision to how it's going to change learning. Learning essentially looks the same, but now teachers are lecturing and students are taking notes on a Chromebook or an iPad or a laptop. And it's like, so what? Anyway, I better get going.
Okay.
Thank
Get
you.
out of here, man. All right, so I'll
Thanks,
wrap
Ted. It was
again.
nice
I'll wrap
meeting
back
you.
around. I'll
Nice
create
meeting
an
you.
ask for you. I'll create an ask for you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks,
All right.
Ted. Okay, and
All
Jen.
right, I'll stay on for 1 minute, Kevin.
Okay, so anything that you can think of as questions you want me to ask Keisha, please send them to me. Just 2 or 3 bullet points, and I'll send them on to her so there's nothing lost in translation.
Okay, I'll have a think, but I'm gonna be very basic. I'm gonna be like, what do they want? What do they want to teach? How can we help, right? Like, the main thing is, what I see, that if I look at success, to me, the success is you bringing in a speaker series of industry experts to talk about why video games, you know, are super cool and easy to learn, why visual effects is a growing industry, why coding is important and you can get a job coding and working on Star Wars, stuff like that. Like, I want to know exactly what their goal is in these programs, because I know I keep referring to this other one I worked with. They were amazing, and the woman who runs it is fantastic. But what they never had was that sustainability of teaching. They got the grants, they had the hardware, that was all fine and dandy, but they had all this software and they're like, we don't know how to use it. We don't know how to teach it. We don't have anyone on staff. So I'd be really curious with that investment, who are they hiring? What,
if you can, before you lose those thoughts, send them to me quickly, and I'll catch her this evening after work. She's crazy.
I'll try. It might have to be tomorrow. I've been working since
but whenever you can, she's crazy busy, but she this is her baby. This is her baby.
Okay, so I'm going to couch my email, and Kevin, I'm really excited about this organization. I think it's got some great ideas, and we would, as a software company, we're interested in potentially supporting this. Would love to know a little bit more about the filmmaking process, what they're looking for. So I'll have to write it tomorrow. I don't do my good thinking at night.
And can you make an introduction to the pencil person about anything? I'm so interested in interviewing him.
Like you, he's like, I have a thread with him, but we're not close. I mean, like you, meaning like, you're one bullet for Ted kind of thing. When let's get through this, and then I will happily, because if they have like Dwayne might be someone who could do a presentation, right? Like, so I want to save my bullet just because
makes sense.
He's super awesome. He's hard to reach because everybody wants him. He's amazing, and I promise you, I will introduce you to him.
Thank you, Jen.
I just want to make sure that like we're doing the right ask. I don't want to not have a plan. But yes, I promise you, I'll introduce you to him.
Okay, I'll look for your bullet points because I'm going to send them directly to Keisha.
It's going to happen tomorrow because I don't think at all at 7 p.m. Okay, thank you.
Okay, talk to you later. All right.
Bye.